Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Committee of the Whole meeting of Fernie City Council held on sunny April 21st, 2026. Kisukukit. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I will call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following staff recommendation that the agenda of the April 21st, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder for the following, that the minutes of the February 17th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And finally, that the minutes of the March 17th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Adia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous as well. Thank you. I'll now invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with Section 3.7.3 of the Procedure Bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence. Does anyone in the gallery wish to address council? Seeing none, has anybody online indicated? No. Thank you. With that, we'll move right into item 6.1, Fernie Outdoor Rink Society land agreement request. Presentation from the Society's president. Welcome. Well done.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time to discuss this important topic. I'm just going to start my timer. This is a lot of material to get through in 10 minutes, so I'm going to do my very best. I did send it as pre-read, so I hope everybody is already semi-familiar with it. And I look forward to the discussion or in questions afterwards. So first of all, my name is Jordy Guthals. I've been up here talking before, but not to this specific subject. I am the Fernie Outdoor Rinks Society president. We have the rest of our board here. We had one member that's dealing with a family issue in Toronto, so couldn't make it. In maybe just for a bit of perspective and bookends, in real life, I'm an engineer per the council meeting last week. I'd like to think of myself as a human one. And I've got a crazy hockey family. That's where my interest in all of this lies. In my work life, I've spent 20 years with Shell in project development and execution, operations and business development. So developing projects is pretty familiar to me. Typically, my projects I've done are in the range of $200 to $750 million. I will start by saying this proposal is supported by our board unanimously. We have an absolutely fabulous board, high functioning, passionate. This is a subject that means a lot to us. And maybe most importantly, filled with longtime Fernie residents and wonderful human beings. So, in short, the objective for us tonight is to try to propose or convince you guys that we could get a setup similar to what the Fieldhouse got, or continue discussions along those lines. So what we would like to propose is a 30-year land agreement with obviously conditional milestones on our end that we deliver what we say we are going to deliver from the City of Fernie for the proposed location, which I will touch on later. But in short, it's adjacent to Pine Avenue. Our intention with this land would be to build, execute and own and operated Fours outdoor rink. Why are we asking this today? Well, we've had some initial discussions with potential community sponsors, partners, et cetera. They basically said, we love your idea. We are wholeheartedly support. Come back to us when you have a project with land. So that is more or less what we're going after today. And I will talk further about why we think we need this piece as part of our community. So that is the request. So from a, sorry, I'm not going through the slides. From a board perspective or a society perspective, we are a volunteer run entirely, not-for-profit organization. 2025 we started, and basically the goal was to get the outdoor rink up and running again. We successfully did that this year. And we consider it to be a tremendously successful season despite the challenging weather. The rink ran for the first time since 2023. That's 3 years with no skating, no outdoor skating. We got 8 days. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't particularly cooperative, but we created an incredible number of smiles in the community. We got endless thank yous. And generally, our perception is that everybody was extremely pleased to have the rink up and running. We estimate that we had over 2,000 people hours of skating time, which equates to quite a significant benefit to the community. And that was in a short 8 days. So we think we can do a lot better with better weather and with better infrastructure and project support as proposed by this proposal. So what we demonstrated in our view is that we're credible as a society. We can deliver what we said we can, or what we say we can deliver. We can safely operate and maintain a rink. And from our perspective, the key learnings were ice in Fernie is hard. That wasn't a terrible surprise. We knew that. We were told that by city staff as well, by other people, but we made it happen. And the community really enjoyed it. We think that a roof would go a really long ways to extending the ice skating season. I had over 30 days on my personal rink in my backyard, which is shaded. So that's the difference. If we had actually had a cold year, it probably would have been 45 or 60. We have a sort of long-term vision as well for a refrige plant. It's relatively small. You don't need a lot. You just need to get it from that 5 degrees down to just below 0, and you're good to go. So with a roof and a refrige plant, we believe we can operate from November to March continuously. And the other thing we clearly demonstrated is there is demand and a need for outdoor ice in this community. So I will expand on that. Why do we need an outdoor rink? A lot of the reasons I just said as well. It's free, it's family friendly. Providing additional community recreation access is nothing but good for the community. I think everybody would agree. One of the biggest things that we've talked about as a board is it's a safe space as well, right? By having that rink available to the community, we are preventing people from going on, say, lakes that are not safe, which we know we've had a problem with in the past here in our community. I will add that there's also a shortage of ice in this community, right? I see it through my wife's hockey team, through my son's hockey team. We don't have enough ice in this community. This would or could alleviate some of that pressure, potentially providing public skates, providing potential practice times if we could be a reliable ice surface, which I think we could, especially if we have a refrige plant and a roof. And, another massive benefit in our view is that in a year like this, where people come to town and the skiing sucks, they have something else to do, right? And this rink proposal, this location is very close to downtown businesses. I have zero doubt in my mind that it would support the tourism and businesses in the town. And then lastly, although we haven't explored it largely as a board, I think there is tremendous value to the asset in non-winter months. So I think there's some really creative things you could do. at this point, it's just our imagination, but I think you could do some really good things. You could rent it for weddings. You could do socials there. You could do pickleball. There's lots of options. So it could be a community asset year round. Okay, so our future vision, basically 3-phase project, located adjacent to Pine Ave. Year one, we want to build a cement pad, potentially new boards, some discussion around the boards, whether we can reuse what we have. That's a decision that would need to come pretty quickly. We believe we can drum up the money for that relatively quickly, and the permitting process, we believe, will be relatively simple. Year two, build a roof. Year three, add a refridge plant. So this will all provide higher quality ice as well as lower volunteer requirements, and be much more, we'll say, climate adaptive. So the location, as I said, adjacent to Pine Ave, very close to where the current rink is. We've measured it out. The rink in this picture is 75% of the size, is 100% of the size of an NHL rink. So we would be smaller than this. We probably need some small space for potentially a building to put skates on, store shovels, etc. But it wouldn't be a large footprint beyond what is proposed here. Just keeping my eye on the time. I will not speak to the City of Fernie staff feedback. It was provided in advance. It does not support our proposal at this time. Our view is that the primary risk identified in that is that there could be a future recreational facility at that location. My view, our board's view, is that that is at least 10 years away. We don't have a lot of money. We need to put it into pipes and other things. That's my personal view. And I think it would be a real shame to pass an opportunity like this up just for something that could be potentially in the future. So there was other things noted in there. I think that from my perspective, they all have relatively simple solutions, and we're willing to work with the city around those. Lastly, we've had some initial discussions with potential community partners and sponsors. As I said before, overwhelming support, at least for the stage that we're at, very supportive. We haven't cast the net wider. We believe we definitely could. We definitely would. We just don't want to get ahead of ourselves. If this is dead in the water, we don't want to waste other people's time, and we don't want to waste our own time. We all have jobs, families, and other things. So from that perspective, we haven't done additional work, but we have a high level of confidence that we could work through this. We could also phase it with different timing if funding was not available for the larger items like a roof. But year one, I think, is relatively achievable. So with that, and my last 20 seconds, I will just say, or say again that we think this is an excellent project. We think this would be an excellent asset for the community. We're committed to it as a board, and I would ask for your input. And if the answer is yes, great. Happy to start next steps. If the answer is no, we're willing to have further discussion. But we do have some things that we're pretty set on as a board. So
thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Guthels. Well done. You were bang on.
Thank you, sir.
Time-wise. And before I turn it over to council, I do want to say thank you for the work you've put into this, and the work you put into this last winter. In our conversations, it was about proof of concept, and you showed it could be done. So thank you for that. That was no small effort on your part. So thanks very much. Questions, comments from council. Councillor Hamilton and Councillor Ramanathan.
Thank you. First off, this is probably one of the more comprehensive delegations and proposals that have come before me in my 8 years on council. So I certainly appreciate the background work that's gone into this. But one thing I didn't see in the pre-reads or in the presentation was kind of what the plan is for ongoing operational costs and what other locations you've potentially looked at or explored.
Yeah. Okay. So first answer is, from an operating cost perspective, they don't really go up to any significant amount until you have refrigeration. So then you need to talk about tickets for staff to support it. I think there could be a conversation with the City of Fernie around, potential people that might already have those tickets. But I think that's a future conversation. We're pretty focused on year one we wanted to share the vision. From a year one perspective, operating costs, like honestly, the community stepped up this year. We have everything we need. I mean, we could certainly always get more, have a dedicated snow blower and things like that. But we believe that we can source those sort of things on an as needed basis from both our board, but also the community and businesses that support what we're doing. So that's the first answer. The second answer is we did, as a board, talk about different locations. We did consider some. Our just general view is that if you're going to have an outdoor rink, who's your main users? It's kids. So it needs to be walkable from everywhere in the city. We already have a recreational hub at that location. We have everything we need, or very close by, we'll say. We've had many conversations with the Fieldhouse Society. Aisha's been incredibly supportive. We've actually already had conversations as well about potential power transformer sharing. Their bathrooms are going to be at our end of their facility, which means the water is going to be close by. We just think it checks all the boxes. As a board, we agreed that that was the location we were focused on. If we needed to revisit that, I think I'd have to take that back to my board and whether we would consider it. But we believe this is the best location. It's so central. Yep.
Councilor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. Great presentation. Again, great. I had lots of questions, but you kind of answered most of my questions during this presentation. And again, even before I asked my question, kudos to all the voluntary work. All you folks, just very professional and comprehensive. Just this initial look that I've had so far, and 200 volunteer hours. That's massive. So connected to that, we've had these this particular facility, so to say, has had some history in the last many years,
yeah.
And what we have also seen and what I have heard in the 4 years that I've been at the council is sometimes there is a enthusiastic voluntary participation in the first couple of months, let's say a year, and then it just wanes away, like it just drops down. I understand this is a lot more professional and this feels like a more comprehensive work. My question to you would be, what would you say to the detractors who might say, you know what, we've seen this story before. Tell me something that convinces me that this time it'll be different.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying that I don't necessarily fully agree with that narrative. We did not have any problems this year getting volunteers, and we did it on very short notice, right? Like we got our acceptance January 22nd. So we have a list of volunteers. Everybody has come out when we asked. There was a few times where like, shoot, we're short a person to run the hose tonight, like blasted out on socials, and people pretty quickly stepped up. I think part of it was probably a little bit, to your point, a bit of excitement about getting it going. But what I saw was a lot of people coming up to me and saying, hey, how can I help? And like the number of times I texted the link for the sign up to people, like just people skating, right? And like people, like we had to kick people off every single night at 9 o'clock. And every single time I said, hey, would you guys mind shoveling before you leave? Because it'll mean I get to bed half an hour earlier. And every single time, every single person did it. So I have a pretty high level of confidence from the community that, with some organization, which I think we've brought to the table, that it is manageable, it is sustainable. I'll also say that I think when the rink was operated by the city, some of the challenges they saw were around nighttime, right? So if you're going to maintain a rink, you flood it at night. Right. If you're going to wait for it to be cold enough to flood it during the day, because that's when you have staff and that's when people are getting paid, I think you'll have a lot more challenge operating that rink. And so, yeah, that would be my initial response. The only thing I would add is when we have a roof and a roof ridge plant, let me tell you, the amount of work required goes down big time, because the big work is when we get those Fernie wet dumps, right? And we were working hard this winter to keep it going. But if you got a roof, you don't have to worry about that. And if you got a refrige plant, you don't care. You do have to maintain it. I'm not discounting that, but as far as like number of humans required to do physical work, it goes down significantly.
Councillor Shoesmith?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Similar concerns around the staying power, but I really like the tiered approach instead of, like the ladder of goals that make it better and better. The last time this happened, I was pretty involved, and I can say from experience, shoveling the rink overnight in a blizzard is really not a great experience to do without a lot of help. But I think that you guys are far more capable. I think the town is in a far better spot to be able to pull this off. As to the concerns about future Recplex thing, I think the town would be irresponsible to be spending taxpayer dollars on something like that right now when we have much more critical things to spend. And I think that between you guys and the field house, we're basically getting most of the benefits of that proposed sportsplex without a tax, well, not without a taxpayer dime. I'm sure there'll be some cost somewhere, but largely on the backs of just volunteers, very grassroots. I can't say enough how much I think this is great and I support it.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton and Councillor Nixon.
Thank you. You mentioned, I appreciate that the roof and the ice plant are into the future, but you'd also mentioned in your presentation, like this is a free amenity.
Mhm.
So my biggest hesitation with, going with phase one is we get to phase one, but then there's no funding, there's no financing, and there's no operational plan for phase two, phase three for maintaining a roof, maintaining an ice plant. And I know you haven't invested the time and energy to think that through or put that all into an operating plan, but I'm curious, have you been thinking about that and what does that look like?
Absolutely. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about how much less shoveling I'll have to do. I think phase three is the real, that's where, that's where you're really going to have to dive into that type of stuff. So I think there are opportunities, as I said, to monetize it in summer months. Let's look at I almost want to pull it up again, right? I know it's just an AI generated image, but it brings a smile to my face to see that picture. Who wouldn't want to get married, in a spot like that, right? I think there's opportunities to work with the community and to fundraise. That I believe would cover a good chunk of the operating budget. 50-ton plant doesn't use that much power. So we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to keep this thing going. It's not an arena. Before phase three, a roof, relatively low maintenance, right? So it's actually going to reduce the operating costs, in my view, because you're not going to have to worry about cleaning the ice and whatnot in the same way. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, good job. 8 days. It's pretty good. And thank you to all the volunteers out there as well that did that. I maintained an ice rink in Calgary when I was in my younger years with a stronger back, and so that was a very difficult thing for me. I'm just curious about the 30-year land agreement. Is that like a number? Maybe I missed it in the presentation or the pre-reading, but I'm just concerned about the 30 years.
Yeah, so I'll be fully transparent. I cherry picked that from the Elk Valley Fieldhouse. I'm pretty sure it was a 30-year lease. What I don't want to be in a position where we spend $1 million on a roof and then you guys kick us off 5 years later, right? And I'm not saying you would do that. I'm just saying that's if 20 makes you feel better, I would happily take a 20-year lease. But the point is, it's the intention is that this is long standing, right? We want our society to be stable and and maintainable, right? So if we're going to have assets, we need to take care of them. And that includes having a lease in place for the foreseeable future.
Paulo?
Thank you for that explanation. And so, yeah, and I guess the location itself, you know, I mean, I think about Pemberton has a very large roof structure. It's not used for, it's used for their farmers market, but it's a really beautiful timber frame structure that I've been to in the summers. And, you know, I think about this structure right beside Pine Avenue, which is a really busy thoroughfare. And I just don't know if that suits that area itself. It's just my personal opinion. But it, you know, I'm also very cognizant of what staff has said in the email correspondence. And I mean, if you were to look at other locations in the community, it might be an opportunity to find another place as well. So I would be hesitant in supporting this without a sort of a fulsome look at the other places in the community that would have water and, you know, access for parking and stuff like that. That does give that coverage structure and in the community that could serve as a summer asset as well. So those are my thoughts.
Councillor Audrey Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. Jordy, thanks. You actually answered a few of my questions, but I'm just going to speak a little bit to what Councillor Nixon was saying, because I think that the original vision of the original group of us was to have a post and beam roof. So I don't see a roof as being an impediment there. We're going to have the field house. We've got the pool. There's other amenities there. I think aesthetically, you've just chosen a roof in your renderings just to show the idea, right? I mean, aesthetically, we could make it look very lovely.
Absolutely. So I wanted to come here with a credible proposal. And so keeping the costs as low as possible was a priority as I was looking through this. So I chose a simple steel structure. It will be less aesthetically pleasing at $1.6 million. I did some playing with this in this space. And if you wanted a really beautiful, like something that you'd picture in Banff, you know, we're probably going from 1.6 to 4.8. And we're not set on 1.6. That is sort of to get the discussion going. If we go out to the community and there's an incredible amount of support and willingness to put something better in, I'd love to build something that's more aesthetically pleasing, right? But I also want to stand here and be credible in costs, right? Because this is a bare bones implementation, right? Like this is like me project managing this thing. And, you know, I estimate it'd probably be $5 million plus if the city were to execute it.
Yeah, completely fair. I just like, I think, and I could be wrong, steel does come colored.
Yep.
Right? So if you wanted to make it green to match the green trim on the pool, you could really.
Absolutely.
Like we have committed largely to that area being recreational. So to me, that fits in. I also think that and this is just my opinion, not the opinion of all people on council, but I think that the plan that we have that's was formulated for that site is out of date and not really in line with what the community needs in the future. There is also the tourism group who is looking at opportunities for a much more vast recreational facility. So in line with the fact that the field house has a lease, I don't think we're going to be tearing our pool down anytime soon. I don't see roadblocks to having the ice there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be done well. And people do really love to be able to walk there. I think that's important. The dirt jumps are there, all those things. It's going to be very close to the daycare center for the maybe little bigger kids that could toddle around on it, the schools. Bravo, well done. I support it.
Thank you. Maybe if I can just add very
Please.
briefly, we are quite flexible as well to the staged approach. Like if it would give council some comfort in, you know, something like a 30-year lease, like we can put as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I've got to go through my board, but like, we're open to having conversations about framing it in a way that makes the city more comfortable, right? So if we never develop phase two, maybe you kick us off after 5 years. I don't know, right? I like, but we're open to being flexible on that, right? Like if the vision doesn't materialize, you know, I don't want the city to feel like they've made a mistake by giving us the land and it not ever going the direction that certainly we intended to. So I mean, happy to have a brainstorming session or further discussions around that specific type of conversation.
Councillor Ramadas and then Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Your Worship. Again, to Councillor Roddy-Kelly's point, I know that place is meant to be for recreational facilities, and I think this is apt. It's the right thing to do in that spot. I've heard about this quite a bit in the last 4 years, and we need to get to a solution on this particular amenity in town. There is a lot of emotional attachment to it. People love this space, and I am in support of moving forward with this, which means my question to the CAO is, what does the next steps look like? I know there is no council motion here on table, but if there was, what would that look like?
Thank you. Through to council, I think the corporate officer is probably best positioned to speak to like the nuts and bolts of the governance piece. Right now you're in committee of the whole. So you could provide some direction to staff to begin working out elements to bring back to council for consideration. And or thank the delegation, and then a councillor brings back a notice of motion or a motion to a future meeting for action, to a regular or a special council meeting for action. Those are the two. I think realistically, you want to pay very close attention to developing the right land use agreement, whether that's a lease or license of occupation, developing language that provides for flexibility and the opportunity, but also recognizes the need to perhaps be able to step in. If I'm being very frank, when I look at the societies that have been around for 100 years, as I would hope the Outdoor Rink Society would, if they're developing on public lands, at some point cities have to step in or other partners have to step in, because while cities last hundreds of years, often societies and other groups don't. And when they do, sometimes during those journeys, there are times for renewal. And so to be an effective partner, we generally have language in our agreements that protects both parties, right? The broad public taxpayer, in terms of you have this license and every year we review it for renewal, or this lease or B. And it's a little unique compared to the revenue generation scheme of the field house, compared to a free asset that doesn't have a revenue stream to then back up the maintenance and replacement over time. Detailed, but that's business planning. Council's resolution would probably direct staff to go and work, and we would try and suss out, what does the business plan look like? What does their ongoing renewal plan look like? That kind of stuff.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not a hockey player. I never was a skater. I told my parents when I was 6 years old I wanted to become a speed swimmer because there was a lot less stuff to put on. But I am in favor of this in principle. I love seeing the volunteerism taking charge and taking onus for delivering an amenity for the community, and that it's volunteer driven. I am hesitant, however, with, as was mentioned earlier, year 2 or 3, when the volunteer excitement burns out a little bit, what happens after the roof's been put on, but suddenly you come up $50,000 short because you need new shingles or something like that.
Steel.
Steel, what? The steel roof blows off in the next big windstorm, a panel blows off, without having the detail of, what that operational ongoing plan is. I am hesitant to allocate municipal resources or municipal lands to the facility, particularly because there is currently no revenue mechanism involved to just solely rely on donations and volunteer hours. I'm also a little bit hesitant with the location and knowing what might else go in there. Is that quote unquote highest and best use? Or is there another location in town that might actually be better that we just haven't examined yet? So yeah, I would like to see something come back to us with a little bit more of a formalized report. But right now, that's kind of where I'm at.
Councillor Audie Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of check in with Jordy to make sure what I heard, that I heard and understood correctly. You would be willing to look at guardrails and milestones. I'm going to use Councillor Shoesmith's guardrails word. You know, such as certain commitments being made, and if you weren't able to meet those commitments, the land would revert back. And I don't think that, or let me phrase this a little bit differently. It might be prudent to brainstorm some revenue generating opportunities, like I think what you were talking about in summer, those types of things, like weddings. Maybe it's a outdoor concert venue, maybe, you know, lacrosse league, yeah, all those things, right? It could be a lot of things. So maybe that this gives the board some food for thought. But I think I would like to, I'd like to see where this could lead. I think a robust agreement that protects the board and the city is probably expected by both sides and smart.
Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. I really like the taxpayer not paying for this. In previous years, we were putting $30,000 into this out of our taxpayer money, and we are not doing that now. So I thank you for that. And I'm going to go operationally as well. When I used to be on rinks in Edmonton as a kid, we never had asphalt underneath us. We never had any of that. The rinks that I maintained in Calgary, it was just on grass. Do you really need concrete? Do you really need asphalt? I mean, are we making this harder than we need to? I mean, because if you just put up boards and put in like what you do for your backyard rink, plastic liner, and then fill that full of water, should it not just freeze?
It would. I mean, certainly from our perspective, you're going to be able to make higher quality ice, as well as, in our view, like we are pretty intent on doing the 3-year vision. Like if you're going to build a pad, doing it at the start is the time to do it, right? And from our perspective, the plan as phased is more credible because I think it'll be a lot easier to fund. And so, do you have to have a pad? Probably not, right? But I mean, if we're going to spend 150 grand on boards, you might as well put a pad down. Like that's my perspective. Like the intention is that this is not like, you know, slapped together, you know, hammer and nails. Like we want this to be an asset that's maintained and is real. Like I've skated on some of the rinks that like they have in Canmore and Lake Louise, and like it's amazing. Like it is just an amazing special experience. That's what we want to bring to Fernie. So you should do it right. That's my perspective.
Just
Further?
And so you don't have ice that's this thick and then this thick.
Yeah. Like in my backyard.
Councillor Shoesmith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Not to put too fine a point on it, I'll be blunt. I said that I thought it was irresponsible for the town to want to build a big recplex on the taxpayer dime when we have other things to do with that money. So too, the concern on the city's end is entirely valid. We don't want to inherit a yearly cost. We want to see this thing succeed. We want to see you guys succeed. So I think, speaking for myself, I think council would probably be more comfortable if there were a way to monetize it a bit. That being said, my support for this whole thing isn't contingent on that. want
Yeah.
to make it clear that the concern is that we don't want to inherit another drain on the finances when we have so very much to repair.
Yeah, and fair enough. And, you know, maybe it would have been helpful if I had put some of that operating cost together, but like our costs are less than $10,000 a year, right? It's basically insurance. It's really insignificant until you actually have an asset. Sure, a roof does add some. Most steel roofs last for 20 years, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Refridge, yeah, you're probably stepping it up a level, but this is not a professional refridge plant. And I mean, from my perspective, if I was the city, like what is there to lose in this, to your point? Like what's the worst thing the city could inherit? And in my point of view, it's a pad that doesn't get used and our society folds and you've got to pay, you know, assuming we go bankrupt, right, and just disappear, what, 50 grand, 100 grand to get rid of the pad? It's assuming you can't find something better to do with it. Like the city's not taking much risk here, in my point of view. Obviously, I'm not sitting over there, but it's low risk.
Further?
Give us a shot.
All fair points, and thanks for that. I would also just say, you know, the devil is always in all the details, and I do have full confidence in our staff to make sure that the agreement looks after the city's interests.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor Ravenous.
Thank you. You know, as I was reading it through everything, and again, kind of back to my earlier point about doing a bit of an examination of other potential locations. You need a roof, you need a concrete pad, you need a space that's proximal to a lot of kids. Why hasn't the Kinsman pad arena next to the high school track been examined? To me, that seems like it's kind of checks 2 out of the 3 boxes just to get an ice plant there and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah. So we did talk about that location and probably don't want to go into all the details of pros and cons and whatnot. And maybe that's something that we could have included here. But in all honesty, I didn't think the people in the apartments next door would want giant bright lights shining in their apartment, right? They're much closer, right? And it's also loud-ish, right? Like the closest houses at this proposed location is mine. It's not that loud.
Councillor Ravenous?
Yeah, and it's much smaller.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not sure if you had this in your mind also. I just want to turn this into an action. I think we've had like really good conversations here and a lot of operational details needs to be fleshed out at a later time. So what would be good for us is to actually drop a notice of motion here and ask staff to bring back a thorough analysis of pros and cons and also bring the society's analysis also into picture and for us to actually debate about this at a regular council meeting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective because I typically save my remarks for the end. But first of all, to your point, Mr. Goethals, Jordy, your first name is easier to pronounce than your last name. This was a very credible presentation. You put a lot of work into it, and I very much appreciate that. So, and you used some phrasing that has sort of caught my attention. And before I get there, first of all, the creative use of space that you talked about, like in the off season, I think was genius. Like I think that really is thinking about the asset in a holistic way. So I think that really works well and further supports the credibility of your presentation. So thank you for that. The phrasing you used that I wanted to touch on was you're open to further conversation, and funders have typically said, and I'm not quoting you, so I'm not holding you to this, but come back with you have a project when you come back with land.
Mm-hmm.
So I very much appreciate those two perspectives, because I also have a question, not for you, but for staff about the site and the whole. Like I appreciate, I read staff's response, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking I don't have a clear picture of what the future of that site is. You know, we've got a pool there. We've got the field house going in. You know, we've got you guys, your proposal potentially as well, but it all starts to feel, and this is not a criticism of you, it all starts to feel a bit ad hoc. So I'd like to get a sense from staff, to Councillor Ramadas's point, like what are we envisioning here? And my ultimate goal would, we find a place for your rink to fit in that vision, whether it's at this site or another site that's amenable to you and your board. Because as I said, like, you guys have done incredible work. You realize the proof of concept, you can make it happen. I'd like to see that continue. But there's a bunch of unanswered questions for me in terms of our job, of course, is to look after the interests of the taxpayer of the city of Fernie. And part of that job is to create a vision for what the future of this community looks like. And I think there's a place, an important place for the outdoor rink. I think you're right, skating under the stars or even under a roof with that view, I think it's fantastic. So yeah, I would like a more, how would I put this? More credible, not from you, collectively credible from our staff working with you to give us some tools, help us understand how we could realize this vision for the community, if that makes sense.
Can I make a quick
Please,
comment?
absolutely.
Yeah, so fair enough, right? And, you know, it's not on us to tell you what the vision is for that space. The only thing I would say is, like, we're keen to get going, right? Like, we want ice this winter. We got a lot of work to do if that's going to happen.
Understood. Yeah.
And my concern, which, like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm poo-pooing on the city,
No.
but it took us 8 months to get the feedback that you saw in this. So if we go down that path, my concern is there is zero chance we will get ice this winter. So that's our context. We're not going to be around forever. That's not a threat. It's just.
No,
like,
I appreciate that context. I appreciate that perspective because it's your experience.
Yeah.
But I think there are ways we can accelerate that. And one of the ways is we, for example, we regularize meetings, whether it's, once every 2 weeks until we get to a certain point, then it's once a month, so that we know what we're doing in terms of this whole vision, both parties. I think there's ways we can manage that. And, that council's not deaf to your feedback. No, I appreciate you saying that. So, but I would very much like to see a more fulsome examination of how we make this work. Because I don't want us to be in a position, I've never wanted the city to be the party that throws up all the reasons why it won't work. We've just gone through an OCP workshop. We didn't get to the last question. And the last question is, what do you want to be? It was a supporter, enabler, and what was the other one? I can't remember. Anyway, I want us to be an enabler of visions like this. And so that's where I'd like us to get to. Yeah. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Pretty well everybody has read Strong Towns, and it waxes eloquent the many, many virtues of small bets in this sort of manner. And I think this is right up that alley. I think that there has been a rink on or near that site recently, and it functioned quite well. The town's former long-term plan for that was the big recplex. This is a pared down and far more realistic version of that. I think that we should do everything in our power to assist these people with getting this going this year. Recognizing, of course, that doing our due diligence does actually take some time, which is painful, but I think we should, as a council, commit to this thing whole hog, really. That's what I think.
Yeah, Mr. Baranowski?
Thank you, Your Worship. My only comment that I wanted to provide for context, it appears in the layout, or it might appear in the layout of the report, that the package as is presented to council is what the response was provided to. And so I just wanted to clarify that we were simply responding to the outline of the location and a very general idea in trying to consolidate this. And so you will note that our response doesn't address the many points about phasing, about potential budget. And from the discussion, I understand council would want information on those elements. But
Yeah,
it is simply just a different proposal than
Yeah,
we were looking.
fair.
Yeah.
And I would also, I know this is not a small lift. I'd also want to know what a draft agreement looks like that allows the society to operate and protects the interests of the taxpayers of the city of Fernie. So that we have a contextual piece that we can frame the whole thing, if you will.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilor Ramnas, did you want to propose direction to is it a motion or recommendation? A motion? Yeah. I know. Did you want to propose something?
Absolutely, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the words in my head, but I can just say something.
Yeah, feel free to think out loud. You won't be held to it.
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking a report to come back to the council from the staff with a comprehensive analysis done from the city of Fernie side to understand what are the opportunities and risks with this current proposal, and also to be able to align that with what we have seen tonight from the society, and with actually a timeline, Your Worship, if you wouldn't mind, something that is time bound, so that we are actually looking at it in next month or so instead of
Yeah.
waiting
Yeah.
too long, because there is an element of time involved here, like the gentleman mentioned that the ice time is getting close and we need to have some kind of a plan here. So time bound analysis and aligning with what we just saw tonight.
Thank you.
I know it was too many words.
Okay. Do you want a few minutes? Okay. We'll take, sorry, while you're working on that. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay. Ms. Rhodes, if you don't mind.
Pretty don't laugh.
Whenever you're ready,
Yes.
counselors.
Yeah, those were fun.
They took them away for a reason.
Yeah. Mayor's like, get those away from me.
Okay, with that, I'll turn to our corporate officer to read the draft recommendation.
Yes. The proposed recommendation is that the committee direct staff to work with the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society to prepare and bring forward a report to the May 26, 2026 council meeting that provides an initial review of the society's proposal, options for consideration regarding siting, land use agreements, and information from the society on the operating model and business plan.
Moved by Councillor Ramana, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Discussion. Mr. Barnowski.
If I can, yeah. Again, I want to reinforce our response on wanting to do the planning for that site is just simply based on the proposal and having no policy direction. With council's direction in this resolution, it is siting on that property that we're considering. So I just want to make sure there's not a
No, I think the
misunderstanding.
resolution also talks about other potential locations, does it not?
No, not this resolution is written.
Or the
It is specific to siting on this property, A, and then B, considering the work underway with official community plan, major planning files, facility assessment, and asset management current practice review, we will not be able to have a comprehensive report done in the next 2 weeks to get it published in May. It simply is bumping up against like absolutely core midstream budgeted projects. So it will be a report and it will meet our bar of quality, but it will not be a deep dive, comprehensive analysis. It just isn't possible to bring one of those back and do due diligence, do the research, do the land use planning piece or the land use analysis piece, and then bring something really comprehensive back to council, given where we are in April, and having a couple weeks to write that report and then get it into our publishing pipeline for peer review.
Well, thank you for that. I don't want to waste anybody's time, our time or the society's time. So what is a reasonable timeline to get because I don't want to be sitting here with a vague report. I want council to have the most fulsome information possible to make a decision on. So what does that look like?
My recommendation would be to start with a preliminary report in any case, because then we can shake out whether there are details or things headed in the wrong direction before investing a ton of additional energy going down the wrong path. In the same way that quite often we'll present a bylaw or a major policy update or the budget at a high level at a committee of the whole, and council can discuss it, and then we refine it based on direction. I think that probably gives the society and staff, if we bring you back something at an appropriate level in the next month, then you can provide us direction of like, okay, this is where we want you to hone in and this is where we want to go. Then we can focus our efforts, I think, more effectively. Otherwise, it is a very large research project, I think, without narrowing it first.
Okay.
Does that? Yeah, thank you.
Other discussion? Councillor Ramanus.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was thinking along the same lines as you. My only question is, this is not a new land. This is not a new facility. It's got a long history. Correct, CAO? Like is that, when we say our role here is to make decisions with, limited information many times, right? And none of us is seeking a 95% accuracy here. Even a 60-70% accuracy is good enough for us to directionally give you some recommendation, right? And along those lines, my question is, like, given the long history of this particular facility, this land that has been there in our inventory and all the efforts that has been done in the previous past, why would it take a significant amount of staff effort? Like, that's the portion that I'm not able to understand.
My assumption would be you'll want to understand what the impact on now having 3 full-time winter sports facilities on that property is in terms of the other needs. I don't know if you were by the property this weekend, but there was parking all over where this would be located just to accommodate a swim meet. That'll be happening regularly once the field house is operating. So coordinating with the Field House and the Outdoor Rink Society to sketch out some potential options to understand what would need to fit on the site, not to create a block for the facility, but to understand how to make it work. Then probably a bit of analysis and due diligence on what do we see as comparators and real market examples of similar products that have been built in the last few years. Narrowing down that location is just going to take time and thought and effort. And then discussions about what are the pros and cons of a lease versus a land use agreement? What are the needs in terms of securing funding off what kind of backing? And those are discussions that just will simply take time back and forth. So if we dropped everything and all put down our other responsibilities, Fieldhouse and Outdoor Rink Society inclusive, we probably could sit in rooms for a week and hammer it out. But
Yeah, understood.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that parking was chief amongst the things I was thinking about when all, the facilities are all clicking at 100%. It's gonna potentially be a huge issue. So it is something that bears consideration for sure. Other points of discussion? Councillor Shoesmith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. There's a saying in construction that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. As much as I want to hurry this along, because I too would like to see this functioning for next winter, we do have to do diligence, and the current team that would do it is doing pretty critical stuff.
Mhm.
I would be fine with receiving a more topical report coming in with some sort of timeline and moving this along. Because I think what they need, what their major goalpost is an agreement that says they have the land.
Mhm.
And that's the thing that all their money hinges on. So I don't know how quickly we can conceivably get that out. But I don't think it should jump the projects like OCP or anything like
Yeah,
that.
no, I don't disagree. And I appreciate Mr. Bornowski's framing because I look at, a number of the staff that are sitting here who would have to be involved in this conversation. And I appreciate everything that they're working on. So, I appreciate your framing, Mr. Bornowski, that if there's a report that can at a minimum point us in a direction, then I think that's worthwhile in the short term for sure. Yeah.
If I may, council might remember the early discussions around 692 3rd Avenue.
Mhm.
And we had a concept, a pitch of mixed, affordable, below market and at market housing. We had a property that we couldn't use as a fire hall anymore because it wasn't safe for employees, and council had some preliminary reports about constraints, opportunities, condition of the site, a very early report, but then created a letter of intent or a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
It's those sort of early documents off that next report that then give a society or a community partner or someone, I believe, some confidence in advancing their project, while then we work out the fine details on how does this thing need to be rotated and placed on this site? How comfortable are we with the land use agreement and operating models?
Yeah, that's a helpful analogy. And not least of all, because it was, I think, came from us to suggest an extra floor at one point on that facility. Councillor Shoesmith.
The motion as worded was to that site specifically, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That'll save some time.
Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. You're welcome to stick around, but you don't have to. Item 7.1, proposed amendment to the community standards bylaw, 2556. Report from bylaw officer Kramer.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Presentation is to seek council's direction on proposed amendments to the community standards bylaw to deal with noise-related issues. Just a friendly reminder to council, I am hearing impaired, so I need you to speak up. Last council meeting was like a Seinfeld issue, the low talkers. I thought I was going to come here in a puffy pirate shirt or something, so just if you ask questions, I'll ask worship if I can't understand it, just to interpret it.
Please, yeah,
Okay.
happy to do that.
So a little bit of background, the Community Standards Bylaw 2456/2022 addresses issues that impact quality of life. Mostly has to do with unsightly premises, graffiti, dumping of refuse and those types of things. But it does not include anything in relation to noise-related issues. We do have a noise bylaw in effect here, 1635. It was adopted back in 1993. It is severely outdated. The authority sections are either missing or non-existent. So basically it's unenforceable. And what was applicable 33 years ago may not be applicable today. Technology's changed. Some of the issues that we're dealing with because of that new technology need to be dealt with in either amendments or a brand new bylaw. So we're looking at seeking council's direction to include a comprehensive provisions specifically in relation to noise. The proposed amendments would be adding definitions, adjusting regulations, quiet hours, types of noise, those types of things, prohibited noises and adjusted exemptions. Lots of the ones we get complaints about is snow clearing with the city of Fernie at 4 a.m. because the equipment has to have backup sirens. And so that wakes people up, but it's a legitimate thing that we need to do in the city to make the public safe. So some of the offenses and related fines in our present bylaw, which once again is unenforceable, which we will be looking at in the amendments, the proposed amendments. You can see there prohibited hours. It ranges from $1,000 for a third offense, $250 to $1,000. So we'll be looking at comparisons of fines for municipalities, Sparwood, Alford, Cranbrook, Fernie. So the recommendation is that council choose to amend the community standards bylaw to incorporate noise provisions, or that council direct staff otherwise. Some of the things that we deal with, by the way, are there's mechanical noise, such as large industrial fans, heat pumps. We also deal with the normal noisy party complaints, construction noises, excavators, all types of heavy equipment, also with saws and, general construction noise. We also deal with people that are, cutting their lawns at 10 o'clock at night, and snow blowers, etc. We also have noises designed to deter wildlife or scare wildlife emanating from buildings. So all these types of things that we have to deal with.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you, Officer Kramer. Questions? Councilor Eddie Kelly.
Thanks, Officer Kramer. Is there, you mentioned the other communities, Sparwood, Alford, Cranbrook. Do they have modernized noise bylaws that you could take a look at so you're not having to completely reinvent the wheel and maybe adapt them to suit our needs?
Yeah, so their provisions, some of them have incorporated into a similar community standards bylaw, and we'd be looking at those if council directs staff to bring forward amendments. Then we would do those comparisons to see what they're actually doing and then make minor adjustments, but basically following suit. We're not reinventing the wheel.
Thank you. Other questions from council? Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find my space. My finger popped it. There's one in the exemptions. There's one fairly specific exemption that I know some people in the gallery are here specifically about, and that's the exemption around the arena mechanical plant. So as I was reading it, I was curious if we should be adjusting that language to either remove that specific exemption or adjust it to all municipal facility mechanical plants. I know why it's there, but I feel like it's maybe a little bit too much of a here and now problem and not a looking 5-10 years into the future problem.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hamilton. And we put that in there because we have received complaints. And whether or not council chooses to put that into the bylaw as an exception, but it may be just a legitimate, it's a mechanical system, emanates noise, and there's not much sometimes you can do about it. We did have a mechanical noise, say a fan down on Highway 3. It was a restaurant, but that was over and above what was normally emanating from that type of fan. So we worked with the owner and found the problem, fixed the problem, noise is gone. So we just put that in there because we did have complaints about it. So.
Further?
If we worked with a business owner to find the problem, fix the problem, and not have a complaint, I would wonder why we wouldn't follow that same procedure internally.
Well, we have. We've committed 10,000 in our 2026 budget for investigate noise abatement on that facility. So we have done that. We are working.
I appreciate that we are working towards it, but I guess I'm just curious why we are still specifically singling it out in this update, knowing that we are working towards fixing it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We've had the zoning in the city of Fernie is kind of a mishmash. We have commercial zones right next to residential zones. And some of the equipment that is in those commercial zones emanates noise, and it's just the nature of the business. Sometimes you can maybe build a structure around it to abate the noise. Otherwise, it's just the nature of what it does. We have pubs in the city of Fernie that emanate music noise, which is legitimate on a business right next to a residential area. We get complaints about that. Not much we can do. That's what the nature of the business is. We have a certain hour where it has to stop, but the noise during the day, there's not much we can do. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly and then Councillor Shoesmith.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, for bringing that up, because that was one of the reasons I put up my hand. But that leads me to think that, okay, yes, we have committed funds to studying that problem. And we don't know if there is going to be a mitigating, because we don't know yet. So just for the sake of argument, I can understand fully why they included the arena in the bylaw. Should we find that the $10,000 study says, hey, you can do this mitigation, is that not something that we can amend
Oh, we can always
at a future time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I don't see the harm in including it. And also, to your point, Councillor Hamilton, maybe it should include other city entities that we haven't thought of.
Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I noticed that too. I'm okay with this as is. Seemed kind of, I mean, we're fixing it. The city should be in accordance with our own bylaws, obviously. But let's say it wasn't in there. Would our bylaw official issue us a fine for the noise, and then we would pay it to ourselves and order remediation, which is what we're doing? It just seems so.
Circular.
Yeah. And also just one other thing I took note of was the shouting lasting 15 minutes within a 30. That's both oddly specific and are you timing people's arguments? No real comment. I think this is fine as is.
Thank you. Officer Kramer, couple of comments. I have no issue with the noise bylaw being nested in the community standards bylaw. I think that makes perfect sense. I would like to see when it comes back done that way, I'd like to see some data with it, like the range of complaints we receive, how many noise complaints we receive, how many noise complaints you and your fellow bylaw officer respond to, and how many the RCMP are forced to respond to because it's after hours. Like, I'd like to get a sense of what our bylaw is actually trying to control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Your Worship.
Yeah.
We can pull those statistics off our system and contact the RCMP. Also, there's a little caveat on that is that these are reported incidents, right? Lots of times things go unreported.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to us.
fair.
And so we can only give you a picture of what we actually receive.
Yeah, and I think from a governance perspective, that allows us to determine whether there's actually a problem. And I say that not because of anything you've ever told us, Officer Kramer. It's at my work at the regional district table, there's often complaints about noisy short-term rentals, for example. And people come to the meeting and say, you can't grant an extension to this temporary use permit because it's noisy. And the bylaw officers asked, and we've received 0 complaints. So I want to get a sense of what the data is telling us, and so what this means as an enforcement tool. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, data is the key. The Living Cities modules have a noise monitor as well. So you can actually put that, let's say we were having an issue with Main Street, you'd put it on the Main Street and you'd see how many times the decibels went above 90 decibels or whatever.
So Officer Kramer, for context, those are their monitors that go onto the street lamps. They're called Living City is a company that produces them. And they can provide any number of functions, traffic counts, speed counts, noise apparently, which I didn't know. So yeah, it's, I know Councillor Nixon has proposed he's going to bring forward a notice of motion that we enter into a relationship with this company, because they have I think it's free for a certain period. Yeah, air quality monitors, and we can, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. We can look into, that type of technology and get a costing and bring it back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. 2 things. Firstly, 3 things actually. I'm not sure I'm a fan of there being some total state censor, knowing when I'm yelling at my video game for 15 minutes straight. But secondly, the total fine amount, you're enabled to fine up to $10,000. What's a pretty normal fine that you guys hand out? I don't imagine you're just running around sticking every unmowed lawn with $10,000 fines.
Thank you, Councillor Shoesmith. So we can actually, under the Offence Act, it's been amended, we can give a $50,000 fine if we go along form information. That is rarely or ever happens. Usually goes under the MTI Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw. Typical, anywhere between usually $250. We work on a tiered approach, right? So we look at basically education, let people know what the bylaw is, what their expectations, our expectations are. Then we look at compliance. And then ultimately, if it has to move up the ladder, we go to enforcement, which goes to fines. But usually, anywhere between $250 to $500 is a typical fine.
Thank you. And then just for my own and anybody listening's edification here, how does one file a noise complaint with the department? Like, say it's 2 a.m. and people are banging on with a loud party. I mean, obviously there's no bylaw available. I would hope you're sleeping. So what's the best way for people to approach that?
Thank you, Councillor Shoesmith. So the municipal ticket information bylaw includes all our RCMP officers that can issue MTIs under all our bylaws. So if they call the RCMP during those late hours, like 3 a.m., they got a noisy party next door, they put up with it for 4 hours. They call the RCMP can come over, deal with the situation, and then they can issue fines if they so desire. Lots of times we'll get referrals from the RCMP as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Officer Kramer. I wonder that there was a recommendation on screen. Do you have that at your fingertips? Oh. Mr. Baranowski.
Your worship, in the report, the direction requested is just seeking direction on a proposed amendment. So far, what we've got is some quite clear direction to consider the matter of municipal operations, facilities such as the ice plant, data, and where or whether there are problems. And then, pardon me, if the third might be objective measures. If you're talking about air quality, we're probably then talking about decibel noise and actual thresholds so that there's objective measures of what is and isn't considered a nuisance. Those would be the three that I think would need analysis and to be brought back. And the recommendation is that council give us that direction, and then we'll go about doing the research and bringing this project back forward.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Look forward to seeing it come back, Officer Kramer.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, members of council.
Don't forget your puffy shirt next time.
He's got to be able to hear your jokes in order to. Unless there's anything else with that, we will adjourn the committee of the whole at 7:58 PM and call a 5-minute recess before we convene our next special meeting. Thank you. Oh, sorry, thank you. Welcome back to this special meeting of Fernie City Council held on April 21st, 2026. Kisukukit, we once again acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleate First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleate and are members of Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call the meeting to order at 8:05 p.m. and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation that the agenda of the April 21st, 2026 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation that the tax rates bylaw number 2550/2026 be given first, second, and second readings. Moved by Councillor Ramnas, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? Mr. Burdett.
I have a brief slideshow if council is interested in seeing that.
Happy to. Doesn't say this anywhere in my agenda, but go right ahead.
Sure. Thanks.
Are you more surprised than me?
Thank you, Mayor Melgan. Evening, council. Just a few slides for me tonight to accompany this report and bylaw in your package. I just intend to briefly describe the relationship between assessed value and a homeowner's property tax. This slide council's seen a few times before, but it's direct from BC Assessment. And what's important here is how a house increases when compared to the average in the city. If your house has gone up by 20%, for example, but the average is 30%, your taxes will go up by less than the approved increase from council. And the reverse also holds true in that example. So this is using this year's numbers, just putting that relationship of assessed value and tax rate in word form. So the average increase in residential homes this year in Fernie went up by 6.92%, and council passed a 6.68% tax increase. So the tax rate goes down by a little bit. So that the city only collects at 6.68%. Last year it was $3.32. This year it's $3.30. This slide is oh, that's very small, sorry. A half donut chart breaking out where the money goes from the average home in Fernie. I do have a really funny pie chart joke, but they're typically aimed at Councillor McIsaac, so I'll save it for next year.
No, please. You can't do that to us.
Please. But for an average residential property in Fernie, which is valued at $988,000, their tax bill for 2026 will be just over $5,900. Just under half of that, 49.5%, the city collects on behalf of other taxation authorities, such as the regional district, provincial school program, the regional hospital, and two other smaller taxation authorities, which are BC Assessment and the Municipal Finance Authority. RCMP is split out here too, which is about 5% of a typical property tax bill. And then the orange section on the right is where the rest of your municipal taxes go, which is split between reserves, fire and bylaw, general government, which includes administration and council, public works, parks, facilities, and playgrounds, and so on. This slide details the increases for all of the individual tax authorities. You can see at the top there, the 6.68% for the city, which is an extra $190 per year. Of note is the three bigger percentage increases from the three main tax authorities that we collect on behalf of. The regional district had a 14.2% increase, regional hospital with a 24.8% increase, and the school, which goes to the province, went up by 12.5%.
Sorry, Mr. Burdett, that increase in the school tax, that goes into the provincial education coffers generally. It wouldn't have anything to do with a new school that was being built. here.
That's correct. It might be allocated specifically for School District 5.
Hmm.
I'm not exactly sure what they do with the money, but then, that would fund their operating
Yeah.
and their future capital plan. So in a roundabout way, past taxes for this purpose would have paid for the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Nixon, Counselor Nixon, sorry.
Thank you.
Demoted you. Support, yeah. Go ahead.
Just curious about the regional hospital increase. Is that 24.8? I mean, is that specifically in relation to the third floor, or is that just the whole East Kootenay Regional Health, that whole expansion? Just curious.
Thanks, Counselor Nixon. Mr. Boranowski might have a better memory than myself, but we received a brief presentation from the regional district who manages this. And I have a vague recollection that they have a lot of major improvements coming down the pipe the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I can't remember specifically what they were, I guess. I could bring that back for council. I could ask the
Two
question.
big ones that come to mind are the new tower at the regional hospital in Cranbrook, of which the hospital district has to pay 40%, and the cost escalation on the green home, the extended care home in Cranbrook. Beyond that, I'm not sure those are the big two huge capital items that have probably inflated this.
Mm-hmm. And the hospital's had fairly large increases for 3 or 4 years in a row now. Not this big, 25%, but definitely double digits. And I kind of got the impression that they expect this to continue at least for the next couple of years. But again, I can't remember the details of what they have planned there.
Councillor Ramanus.
Thanks, Your Worship. I've got a really complicated question. I hope I can explain it properly what I'm trying to say. And it's in the vein of what you were asking, Your Worship, like what portion of this school increase goes to the regional district, the SD5 and others. Like, does someone know the mechanism behind it? And the reason I'm asking this is often we hear down in the States, for example, because of the way the funding works there, often communities that are wealthy also have better school districts. Like what exactly happens in province in BC where there's a little bit of equalization between, I don't know, less well-to-do communities versus really prosperous community like ours? Like, how does that work out in the mechanics? And if there is no answer, that's okay too. Just curious.
So your first question about the school, when the province passes their legislation that sets their tax rates, they have 2 separate pieces of legislation. One is purely just for residential properties, and that gives a tax rate by school district. So that to me implies that all residential taxes that are paid that we collect on their behalf would go to School District 5, but I don't know if that's exactly what they do with the money. And then the rest of the property classes like commercial and industrial, that tax rate is the same, I think, for the whole province. So I don't know exactly what they do with that money, but I think it would, my unconfirmed opinion is that they would take certainly the residential money and attribute that all to School District 5, and then it's up to School District 5 how that's spent, right?
Brother?
So in a roundabout way, like the value of the property market in a certain portion of the province reflects the funding available to the local school district?
Respectfully to council, you're asking us questions that we should go to the provincial government to get answered rather than on the spot doing research. Mr. Burden and I disagree. I believe that the rates are set by district, but I think that those funds go into general revenues and then based on enrollments are redistributed across the education system. And so I'm of the understanding, but I cannot say it with strong enough confidence that You pay a rate based on your district and the appraisals, trying to make that equitable across the province, but that does not necessarily mean that dollar for dollar that money goes out and comes back, which is different than something like, say, the municipal and regional district tax, the hotel tax, where those dollars do then flow back.
Yeah. Interesting. Go ahead.
Thanks for indulging me in this, Your Worship, and I didn't expect a perfect answer either, and I appreciate the honesty there.
Back to you, Mr. Burdick.
Thanks. Just one more slide. Next meeting is next week, which would be third reading of the bylaw, and then we have May 12th scheduled for adoption. Thank you.
And it's sent to the province May 15th.
It's due May 15th. I'll send it the day after the 13th.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
fair enough. Get in under the wire.
This is due May 15th, and the budget bylaw and the audited financial statements. They're all due May 15th.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, I have, did we got it moved, right? Didn't we? Are there any other questions? Any other discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. Item 5.1, Fernie Child Care Society lease amendment, further expansion. Report from our CAO, Mr. Bornowski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do not have a presentation for you this evening, but we'll provide a brief verbal description of what's being recommended in the report. We are looking to Council to endorse the proposed lease that's attached to the report with Fernie Child Care Society and authorize its execution, rather than a further amendment to a lease that has amendments already stacked onto it. When we started working based on Council's direction from November with the Fernie Child Care Society, we started to find it was cumbersome to look back to an original lease and then an amendment and then a modification. And so just mutually agreed to try and make one cleaner lease to guide their tenancy. Also through that discussion, there was recognition that their most recent expansion would put them in the historical front office space, and that we were finding it increasingly beneficial to have a central coordinator or a lead tenant, if you will. So while they had been asking for some lease considerations in terms of a reduced rate for space that was not revenue generating, office space, storage space, no charge rate or $1 until they're renovated and then funded and operating, and then for the full rate for where they are generating revenue. We negotiated back and forth around the concept of a lead tenant and came to the agreement that is captured in the schedule of the lease that's attached. The board with the Fernie Child Care Society is supportive of that agreement. As is staff, we feel that it'll provide us some support in coordinating and engaging with the other tenants at the facility overall. And it's useful to have an organization there willing to provide some wayfinding or some first point of contact when people are visiting there. Separately, as you'll be aware, our Parks, Facilities and Recreation team has been working with the tenants on a number of considerations, including safety improvements, shared space improvements. While this doesn't address that, it does again give us that point person to go to. And then just in terms of the nuts and bolts of the agreement in front of you, there are essentially three classifications of space being proposed. Their existing space where they generate revenue, meaning where they provide their programming, funded through Childcare BC at the full rate in the lease. Second area where they have storage and office space, therefore not generating revenue, where they have a reduced rate. And for both of those, the utilities are billed just based on a proportion of their occupancy of the interior leasable area. So not common area, but the leasable space. And then third would be the space that they now want to move into, occupy, and then start offering programming, to which we wouldn't charge until either they are approved for funding, complete renovations, and begin operating, or December 1st, no later than December 1st. And at which point they can either choose to pay the full rent for that space and operate with Childcare BC funding or without, or relinquish that space and not pay for that space, and then it comes back into the city's inventory. Financial impact overall is it does generate between $10,000 starting December 1, 2026 and $13,439 in revenues. Those represent the $12, $13, then $14 per square foot lease, plus just that incremental additional percentage of utilities, garbage, snow clearing, the additional services provided. And council will note that we have updated, they will have 2 outdoor playgrounds full-time as they continue to grow their operations. Council may be concerned, there has been some discussion back and forth about where Childcare BC is going, because they did announce in the provincial budget that they weren't allowing new operators, but they are supporting existing operators in expanding, and they have made commitments elsewhere to support expansion on school sites. So the society and the city are quite confident that there's a good path forward here as we have a school site with the French language school district operating there, as well as a not-for-profit operator that is already part of the Childcare BC $10 a day program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baranowski. Questions? Seeing none, I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation.
Your Worship and Council, the staff recommendation is that Council endorse the proposed lease as attached to this report with the Fernie Childcare Society, and that the Mayor and Corporate Officer be authorised to execute the agreement upon completion of the public notice period.
Moved by Councillor Adi Kelly, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn the second special meeting at 8:21 p.m. Thank you, everybody.